So the next piece that I'm going to make is going to be for the bird book. So I'm going to use a smaller file folder than I used for these cards. And just for the sake of doing something different, I think I'm going to use this little pocket that I made by stitching two pieces of old paper together. And then I'm going to layer a few things. It won't need much. And I'm going to add my two strips here to make this a pocket so that I can add something behind it later. And that's it. So this should be a quick and easy one. The focal image for this one is going to be this bird. I really love the colors of this bird with this background. So a couple of prep things I want to do. These are all old edges, but this one is a new edge that I've just cut. And so I'm going to give it a little bit of ink and a little bit of distressing. The bottom of this pocket is just glued, so I won't be able to put anything in this pocket that is very embellished, because of the stitching is what's holding the sides together and glue is what's holding the bottom together. I don't really have those little hinges that I usually use for pockets. So I need to be cautious about what I put into it. Let me find a distresser. Here's my little paper distresser. And I'm just going to distress this bottom edge just a little bit so that it looks old like the other two edges. Just sort of wrinkle it up a little. Usually when I'm working with old paper, if I have an edge that's naturally aged, I try not to ink it up. That's better. Just looks a little wrinkly, a little more wrinkly, and that will look better. So the first thing I'm going to do is attach this bird to this pocket. And as I mentioned in my first video, I always try to respect vintage and old things. So since this is a vintage trading card, I want to use these corners to attach it. So basically these corners are going to go on like this. The corners are going to get glued down, and then I don't have to attach any glue to the back of this. I think it's just a more respectful way of dealing with vintage products. And I'm going to just ink this a little bit because I want these corners to not look quite so new and fresh. So I'm going to add a little bit of vintage photo. Even though these corners have adhesive on the back, the adhesive is usually not strong enough, so I'm going to add a little glue dot behind each one too, just to make sure they stick down. That's better. Actually, I can try to get a little bit more on the inside. Better. And also while handling them, I think some of the adhesive comes off on my fingers, so there's not quite enough to last. So I'm just going to leave that like that and take another one. A little bit more ink. I always do this first and then attach all four at once instead of trying to struggle with figuring out exactly where they want to go and then sliding the card in. I find that this works better. So I'm just going to add a tiny bit of glue to the bottom of each one. And I'm just going to try to make sure that they're all pointing in the right direction before I press down. This is why I always use a glue that is a slow grab, because I always take so long futzing with things to make sure that they're straight. There. There we go. There. And then if anyone in the future decides that they don't want their trading cards displayed in a book, it can be removed and it won't be damaged. So that's basically what I'm going to do there. Now I think what I want to do is add something that's a darker blue, like the color of my threads. And so I'm going to pull out, I like the way the postage stamps looked on the first one. So I'm going to pull this out and think about what color is sort of a grayish blue, like this. And my eye goes to this one, or this one, or this one. A lot of good choices here. I really like a grayish blue. This one is actually perfect, but I don't think I want one that big. Actually, maybe. Maybe. It's going to be tucked under. Yeah, why don't we go with that one? It just kind of feels like the right one. So I'm going to pull this out. And again, these are from the latest Tim Holtz Ideology collection. And he had other ones in the previous collection. Let me see if I have one. Yeah, here's some from the earlier collection. These are not adhesive, they're just paper. But they're really beautiful too. But I really love these new ones. They're so easy. And I'm just adding a little ink. I'm wondering if I need to cut it in half. I hate to waste a piece. Whenever I'm tucking something under, I try to think about whether I can save a part of it and use it someplace else. So let me think. This is gonna get layered like this. And how much of it am I gonna lose? Actually, I can let most of it show, I think. I think that's square. It really looks like a real stamp. The sort of finish on it looks very much like a real stamp. I love that. Okay, so one more thing. I think I'm going to add a button. I don't know if I need much more. I don't have much more room because it's a very small little card. But I do want to add a button. So I was thinking about maybe one of these applesauce buttons. I think I talked about these earlier. These are actually really old buttons, about 100 years old, but they're plastic. These are the very early plastic, very similar to Bakelite. I think this is the one I showed earlier, and I pulled a few more out. I'm thinking maybe, or I could add it up here. That would work. Hear the pitter patter of little paws behind me. One of my basset hounds just came in. Usually I have at least one of them in here. And I'm going to need something here on the label tab. So I could do it either here like this, and that would make that less square. I should do a little stamping up here. I could do it either here or here. I think I kind of like having something at the top, so I think I'm going to go with that one. And I'm going to think about what else I'm going to put here. Maybe some stamping, maybe another piece of ideology. But I'm going to sew this button on. And use this little foam pad to make my holes. I find with old paper it's actually a lot easier to do machine stitching like this than it is to do hand stitching, because the machine stitching just kind of holds it together, especially if you do a fancy stitch like this one. That color will work. Trim that thread so it doesn't get in the way. And I'm going to slip my needle back through the same hole, but I'm going to be pretty careful that I don't pierce my thread when I'm doing it. It just pulls through a lot neater if you don't pierce the thread. And I'm going to cross over and go in the other holes. There. That's it. That's all I need. And so I'm going to tie this off by just going under my threads. And then making a knot by just going through the loop twice. And that is the easiest way to knot a thread when you're stitching. Trim that off. Save that for later. There we go. this guy's ready. So I think I'm going to do a little stamping and then decide if I need one more thing. I think I'm going to use this one. It's one of my favorites. And do that in sepia. And I'll do one up here and one down here. I'm going to do a number, and I'm going to do it in Ranger Archival Seafarer. This is another one of my favorite colors, and it is a little bit more greenish, a little bit more grayish than the night sky that I've used on the other cards. And I'm going to put this right up here. Let's see how much more we need. That just frames it a little bit better. I think I want something overlapping the stamp. You could do orange or yellow. I think maybe that one. That kind of goes with, yep, that's the color. That is the right color. So I'm just going to ink it a little bit. Okay. And I'm going to put it like this. I like that. Maybe, trying to think what shape. Maybe one more stamp like that in the Seafarer. Yep, I like that. Just a little extra detail. There. I think I am happy with that. Maybe just one extra little thing here. I'm going to repeat my little circles. That's it. So I'm going to glue this on. I'm going to mark where I want the glue. Okay, so I am happy with that, I think. And then the last step that I'm going to do is to add my little hinges. You'll recall that with the with the last card that I made, I did the hinges first and then had a difficult time adding the button at the end, so I saved this as a last step. But I want this to be a pocket. Just cutting these down to the right size. The only part of these that's going to show is this outer crease, so I'm just going to add a little ink to the outer crease. Okay. And a little glue. And with these pockets, you can add little journaling cards so that you can write things into the journal, or you could just add something pretty to add a layer, like a tag. Sometimes I just add a textured tag to provide a layer behind. Or I'll do a texture on one side and make it a journaling card on the other side. These are just scrap pieces, which is why they're different sizes, but it really won't matter at all because you won't see them. Both of them are wide enough to be strong enough. And that turns our file folder into a pocket. There. And that's finished. Just to give you an idea, this is one of the cards I added to the larger pockets. I'm not sure if this is what I'll add or whether it'll be something different, but in the end, something will be put in that pocket. Okay, so we've got 3 cards done for one book and 1 card done for the other book. And I think that's going to be it for today. So thanks for tuning in.